FCC can't regulate, for instance, a newspaper, because a newspaper is an information service and is protected by the Constitution. The FCC can regulate something that is of communications nature of communications as a telecommunications service. Just like I'm talking on Skype. Well, this is a form of communications, and there are laws that protect this type of communication, and that's what the FCC. See it.
Let me see if I understand them, because this is all new to me tonight. I am so blown over. The way they view communications, that it's not a form of expression, as noted in the First Amendment. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
Okay, so freedom of speech only applies to the written word.
It does, but remember that the communications, what we're talking about with an electronic communication, telecommunications, is since it is not the written word, but it is also a form of carriage or a carrier of information that remains completely neutral. The carrier, that is the company
because it's
that
a method.
carries, because it's a method of communication,
right.
and we go back to that problem with editing material on your carrier. If you're a carrier like say Verizon or perhaps any company that maintains internet connections, if you're that carrier, Time Warner Cable, Comcast, and so forth, if you're a carrier, your job is to transmit that material from the sender to the receiver and vice versa.
Right.
Your job is not to pass judgment on that material that goes through there. If you have the ability to editorialize, then someone like Time Warner, for instance, could block the transmission of Netflix on a cable modem, because Netflix eats in to the potential income of Time Warner's cable TV business. Now think about it. All they'd have to do is slow Netflix down. They wouldn't have to block it. They just have to slow it down 40%, and no one would be able to watch it. And what fairness is that? It'd be too slow. It'd start and stop. And the fact is, back in 2002, when this came up, there was all sorts of shenanigans that are going on that were messing up the way, like BitTorrents and so forth, were being blocked, and that this messed up people. For instance, Blizzard Communications, when they send out their updates for World of Warcraft, they used to use, I think they have several methods now, but they used to use BitTorrent technology. BitTorrent is a distributed file transmission service that is amazingly powerful, because it's supported over a very wide number of sources. So you're not just going from one server to one user. You're talking about an update on World of Warcraft might be 100, 200 megabytes. It's better to transmit that over a variety of sources so that you don't have one server bogged down with 250,000 or 1 million customers trying to download that 400 megabyte file. So BitTorrent was, to be honest with you, most of the time it's used to download movies and TV shows. But it is interesting that here's a technology that it was started to be used by the legitimate world because it was a valuable thing to have. I mean, BitTorrents make sense for distributing large amounts of data. If you just get back to the principle that they were just blocking it because they thought it was bad, well, now they've made a value judgment on that, on what you're doing. Do we want Big Brother watching what we do, and do we want them pulling the plug whenever they feel like it?
No.
The rest of the world says no, for the most part. And we also have a very serious problem with the NSA right now, and the NSA leaks provided by Edward Snowden.
I have a question before you get to the leaks and the Snowden comment. Are there any other countries that are handling their internet, the communications, like us? Are they in the Middle East?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm envisioning that we'll be like one of the countries in the Middle East who is cut off from the rest of the world because their internet is restricted.
Absolutely, there are countries, and certainly that goes true for China and for the Middle East, for religious dictatorships, for a lot of very tightly controlled, some of the old Soviet Union, those old independent states. They have some very strict rules. You're going to see that. I think I don't want to be Eurocentric, but Japan doesn't have this problem. Europe doesn't have this problem. Germany doesn't have this problem. England doesn't have this problem. They're looking at this. Wow. They're angry about this, and then you've got, like I mentioned, that NSA thing. That is going to cause trouble because you've got people that are truly angry. You've got Angela Merkel in Germany, who is really angry.
And she has every right to be angry.
Well,
I
for
would be upset.
For her, she's being spied on by an ally, and the same way with Britain, and you've got countries like Brazil going to Europe, saying let's form our own internet and let's block the United States. So you're not going to be able to contact Germany. You're not going to be able to contact anywhere in South America. Well, now we're being painted with Yeah, and that's a policy decision. I'm sorry.
Your speaker, you have a browser open. I can hear my voice echo a little bit.
Oh, I don't have anything on. I think there might be something wrong with my connection. We'll see what happens. But so
maybe it's my fault. Okay.
It's that's my take on it.
Well, let's look at the NSA leaks with Snowden. Is there a reason why they're holding him not captive, but they're providing a safe haven for him in Russia? Is it about the internet, or is it about? Well, because it seems like everybody thinks we're this awful monster, and I think we are. I feel like I just found out that the Holocaust is in my city all this time. I never knew it, and I'm feeling really dirty because of our country. To block us off from the rest of the world. Something that we would abhor in another country, like, oh, I can't believe that they're doing that to citizens. I'm so glad we're in America.
Yeah.
I'm not so glad now.
Well, all I can say is that what he did was wrong. He violated. He took an oath, and he violated that, and he did break the law.
Yes,
but I'm not going to say he's 100% wrong, because he exposed something that shocked myself and many people in my business. I work in electronic communications, and I didn't think that they had gone to that extent of spying on our friends. I knew they did it, but I couldn't believe when I saw the leaks the extent that they've gone to. And I think that President Obama has made there has been in the last few days some statements that there will be some reforms in, but I almost feel that there needs to be a head on a platter. There needs to be a ritual slaughter in that agency, and maybe it will get to that, but I don't think you can be too strong, because we've got an entire planet that's looking at this country saying, hey, I thought you people were the good guys, and now we're just a bunch of spies. And we're spying on not bad guys, we're spying on good guys.
On our friends.
I think that the president's approach is far too weak, and I think that he should be out there banging the tabletop saying this is wrong. I don't know what the president knows, and none of us do. And I know that the NSA has stopped many very bad things from happening to us as Americans.
Well,
so I'm not going to assume that I know everything, but at the same time, I think it's a red alert. It's a serious problem for us as Americans. I do not want to go back to the days of going to Europe and almost being spit on by people because they hated what we were doing. Our reputation around the world has gone up a whole bunch in the last few years, and before that, I'll tell you, it was going to Europe and working with European people was very painful. Oh my God,
in France, it was difficult.
Well, it was, we had a head of state here that was calling the French liars, and they weren't lying. They were only telling the truth, and that's something that really bothered me, and I really hope that we don't get to a more burning in effigy of the president and really ruining. I like to go to Europe. I don't know that I would want to go if I'm going to. I went a couple of times during the bad part of the Iraq War, and I'll tell you, it was very depressing because I had people in London that were just, I felt threatened quite a bit. In cities like Paris, that's normally very safe. And in Berlin, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. If they found out you were an American, you were done. They would do whatever they could to screw your day up, And I just don't want to do that. I don't want to go back to that again. It just makes. I know it's very self-centered, but it's a general indication. We're supposed to be the good guys, and here we are. We're not the good guys. I guess.
Are we really
I don't
supposed
know.
to be the good guys?
We're told that when we're little kids. We're told that every day. The land of the brave and the home of the free. And what is it? I don't like to see it when people see us as being the absolute, evil empire. To me, that's bad.
Well, I think of the way, most of us have been raised as far as the love of country had become a religion. And then they incorporated organized religion into that belief structure, the love of country. Real religion went into it. It merged together. And so it almost became sacrilegious to question your government. And it was as if we handed all those freedoms that were so hard fought to gain that we just handed them over to a platter. And it makes me think of Benjamin Franklin, that he had no pity for people who gave away their freedom. There's a famous quote.
Yeah, that's right.
I think of that in the situation we are in at now. This is not the country I used to know yesterday. Just when I found this out, it really has deeply affected me. Next year, people, if you're listening out there, YouTube videos, it will not be the same. No longer will you be able to download torrents. I never did that, but, I'm not for sure. I do believe all knowledge should be free, but, you shouldn't be able to steal someone else's intellectual property is my thought on that, and that is theft. And I think about the NSA leaks, and I think there's a lot more to that.
I'm hoping that that cooler heads will prevail. This could go to the Supreme Court as well. It's not at the Supreme Court, so it's not over. And I think that it depends on what the Department of Justice does. Because if they throw prosecutors on this and they make a case for the Supreme Court, it could be heard, not this term, but it certainly could be heard by next term, or maybe 2 terms from now, which would be like this time next year. And I'm sure, and I always wonder, what if a service provider like Alltel, which is a very smaller provider, what if they were to say, we're hooking our routers up, we've signed a pact with the European Union and the South American Communications Union, and with ASANPAC, which is an Asian Union of Telecommunications. We've signed a letter of agreement saying we are not going to implement. We are going to be net neutral. Now, if they did that, and then they said, well, we're not going to connect to the United States network because the United States network is corrupt. So we'll provide your network access free of blocking, but you're not going to be able to get to American sites that are on a non-net neutrality backbone, on a separate network.
Is this kind of like segregation?
It would be segregation. But what it is it's pushing the economic force, saying to someone like Comcast or Time Warner, if you wish to continue to be a viable network service provider, you're going to need to drop all of this thing about blocking net neutrality. And people say, well, how do you do that? You can't get Alltel if they're in like Arkansas. Well, what if you live in California? You can do that with virtual private networks. There's ways for you to connect your home